Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage your chair for today and Chair of Tech Quality, Sir David Pearson.
Good morning, everybody, and first of all, a massive congratulations to all of you who have got up this morning, managed to find your clothes, get dressed, and be here, because that's fantastic. And I'm really pleased that you have, because we've got a range of glitterati this morning to talk about housing with care and support as part of providing support in the right time, the right place. As a former director of adult social care and somebody who feels passionately about the life chances of people who need health care and support, I think this is an extremely important session today as we think about how we shape the future to make a real difference for the people that we serve in our communities. And I'm not alone in thinking that, because a lot of the strategies across the UK have emphasised the importance of housing, and I think in that the magic solution is housing with tech, with the right wraparound care and support, which enables us to understand people's data and information with people so that they can control that as much as possible, live independently, and live the lives that people want to live. So I think that's the vision that I've set out for you to consider. And the white paper in England, by way of example, did emphasise this. That alongside people having choice, control and support for those independent lives, accessing outstanding quality, tailored care and support, that they should also have access to things that help them to maintain that control and independence, including the appropriate housing and technology. So as well as the £150 million for digitalisation that's signalled in the white paper published in December, there's 300 million to integrate housing into local health and care strategies, and I'm delighted that some colleagues in the Department of Health are here, Mark and Alex, who are working on that very thing. Sorry to name you, but he's there. So if anybody wants to talk to him, this is your opportunity. So I'm delighted that you're here. And I recall again, as in sharing an integrated care system in Nottinghamshire, as I did for 5 years, having a conversation about what should be the priorities for the care system. And one of the things that I propose, which you won't be surprised at, is that we should have a strategy for technology and we should have a strategy for housing. Difficult because there's quite a complicated landscape of providers, even more complicated in many ways than the overall social care sector. And it was quite interesting, the reaction that I got. So one health colleague said, but what's housing got to do with health? So after about 20 minutes of me explaining what housing had got to do with health, we moved on from that one. But another, as it was then at PCT Chief Exec, said, we absolutely need to be more concerned in Nottinghamshire about the 1 million beds that people generally sleep in, i.e. in their own homes, as we are about the 2,500 beds that are in the acute hospital setting. And from a policy and practice perspective, and I'm talking not about you, but nationally, we haven't quite got that balance right. So I was delighted to see, as a central plank of that, of the white paper, this is as an absolute cornerstone. And I think the other thing I would say, by way of setting context, I was delighted to be a joint chair of a housing commission which was from the Dunhill Trust, and Susan Kay is speaking to us later, which was provided through Sky. So Catherine Smith is also here to talk about that commission, which actually set out some of the things, did a bit of a review, I suppose, of housing with care and support across England, and it's got absolute parallels right across the UK, where we set out some of the things that we thought were important that I think have found their way into the white paper. The final point I would make before I hand on to colleagues is that actually if we think about the integration of this at a local level and how this works, and many of you are housing providers, so in fact you're already integrated. In fact, we handed out the QSF awards to housing providers who would use utilising technology, and that's fantastic. So there is already a great groundswell of expertise and passion and commitment to this in this country amongst you. So what we're talking about is what's the vision and how do we take this forward over the next few years. So without further ado, I'm delighted to invite Catherine Smith, the Chief Executive of the Social Care Institute for Excellence, to make her contribution to this morning's discussion. Catherine.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really delighted to be here and be able to speak to you all about this commission. So my name's Catherine Smith, as David said, and I am the Chief Executive at Sky, the Social Care Institute for Excellence. And I'm going to be talking to you today about why we believe that we should be making every decision about care a decision about housing. So this morning I'm going to be sharing with you our research findings from the Sky Commission on the role of housing in the future of care and support. I'll be describing our research, key findings and recommendations, and how this provides a case for investing in housing with care and support. And this includes obviously the opportunities for technology-enabled care. Failed at the first hurdle. So these slides are not moving on. There we go, sorry. So the Commission was established in October 2020. It was a year-long inquiry combining research, debate and future thinking. And we brought together a group of leaders from care and support organisations, academia, experts and practitioners. The Commission was co-chaired by Sky's chair, Paul Burstow, Professor Julian Mayer and Sir David Pearson. And we made sure that the voices of older people and their carers formed a part of our inquiry. And we worked with a co-production collective to help us to imagine what an ideal future place would look like 10 years from now. The stakeholders involved represented a broad set of interests from the public and the private sectors. And of course, the Commission wouldn't have been possible without the generous funding from the Dunhill Medical Trust, so thank you for that. The report was launched in November 2021. So the aims of the Commission. So we spent the year developing a vision and roadmap for providing more options for housing with care and support. And as always, co-production was integral to our work. We focused mostly on the needs of people aged 65 or older, although we also looked at the needs of working age adults, such as people with learning disabilities. We also considered the specific needs of diverse communities who often find it more difficult than others to access high-quality housing that facilitates their care and support. And the Commission believed that as much as is feasible, people should be supported to live within their own homes if they choose to do that, with the necessary adaptations, technology and flexible personal support directed by them. But we also recognise that there will be some people who need or want to move from their original home. And the inquiry led to a set of policy recommendations and a 10-year roadmap for implementing those. To produce the recommendations on the roadmap, we undertook several pieces of research, and this included the population survey, where we had over 1,500 responses, a cost-benefit analysis for the commissioners. We did a mapping exercise, we developed a directory of promising practice, we brought together case studies, we ran an appreciative inquiry and a review of sector literature, and we held a discussion paper and a webinar in February 2021. We looked at the range of housing types available, from care homes and residential care to housing with care, which includes extra care, retirement villages, assisted living and housing with support, such as retirement flats and sheltered housing. And we also examined forms of alternative and community-led housing, from shared lives schemes to co-housing. And this research then helped us to be able to establish a case for cross-sector change. We found that increasing the choice and the availability of housing with care and support for our fast-growing population of older people is one of the most significant policy challenges that we face today. People told us that they wanted choice, better designed and higher quality housing with care and support in places close to their friends, family and communities. In addition to that choice, well-being and independence were key themes that emerged from our studies. In addition to, we found that the range of housing options available don't align with the patterns of demand or people's preferences, and that there is a gap, especially in extra care housing. We also found regional disparities in supply, and in many areas there is a lack and choice of housing options. There's a lack of supply for people of all economic backgrounds, with growing inequalities. And another vulnerable group is people living alone and ageing without support from children. And the number of one-person households in England is projected to increase by 26% in the next 25 years. And currently, nearly 4 million pensioners are living by themselves. So if we carry on as we're doing now, the case for change becomes more urgent as more people's needs for care and support are unmet. So instead, the demographic and funding pressures on the system mean that this supply gap is expected to worsen unless we take action now. So after establishing the case for change, the Commission focused on the future. This means being ambitious and being strengths-based, which means building on the assets that already exist within our communities. This slide here represents our imagined future. We called our imagined future Brookmoor. It's a medium-sized local area in the Midlands with a population of 230,000. The year is 2031, and Brookmoor has been recognised as an award-winning place to live. We described how this was achieved, starting with local authority, establishing a new Housing for Older People partnership to agree a 10-year strategy, one that had been co-produced with local people themselves. This strategy focused on prevention, and it connected up and invested in community assets. It focused on supporting people to live in their own homes with the necessary adaptations, technology, and flexible personal support directed by people themselves. Brookmoor decided to become a digital pioneer, forging a close partnership with a local university and tech startups, and producing a new health and social care digital strategy. By 2031, Brookmoor is renowned as having one of the most advanced assistive technology offers in England. The town has a digital support centre that connects users, carers and providers. One of the Commission's outputs was the production of a set of 7 principles for guiding future strategies and investment. These principles should apply across the board to all types of housing with care and support, both existing and new builds. So when local authorities plan and commission, they should be looking at these principles. Person-centred and outcome-focused, such as promoting independence, improving well-being and quality of life, and reducing feelings of loneliness and isolation. Community connectedness, such as creating partnerships with local communities and the voluntary sector. Strong leadership, culture and workforce, which is instrumental in providing high-quality, personalised care for people who draw on support. Adopting innovation, investing in innovations such as assistive technology, artificial intelligence, self-care apps, sensors, wearables, and integrated care records. Enabling choice and control. And this is about shifting the power and control to people. Enabling choice means having independent and impartial information about housing options. Promoting equality. High-quality, personalised and accessible housing with care and support should be easy to access for everyone. Co-production and shared decision-making. This means involving people themselves in the commissioning, planning and design of future housing with care and support options. So I won't spend too much time here, but the Commission produced a 10-year roadmap that includes actions for government makers and industry leaders for shaping a better future for housing with care and support. We've shared this roadmap with government, and some of our ideas are starting to gain traction, with several underpinning proposals found in the recent social care and levelling up white papers. As our Brookmore example illustrated, a key stimulus for future activity is local planning. The Social Care White Paper includes a housing transformation fund that will depend on local partnerships for coordinated housing strategies. Co-production of these local plans will be an absolute central component of the programme's expectations. The Levelling Up White Paper also announced the formation of a task force on older people's housing, and we anticipate local planning will be highlighted through the task force's work as well. In terms of digital engagement, the Commission concluded that no decision about care and support should be made without considering where people live, and our view is that digital innovation can enable this to happen. So although it's not specific to housing, I wanted to point out how the government's vision for health and care has prioritised digital innovation and investment. Within the Social Care White Paper, for example, there's a section about digital innovation which I would really encourage you to read. And the Integration White Paper also sets out a digitally enabled future with a particular focus on shared care records. As part of the Commission's work, we looked at existing technologies and considered their potential for enabling people to live as long as possible and as independently as possible in their own homes. For instance, we looked at remote monitoring of physical conditions, personal wearables such as safety alarms, intelligent assistive technology, robotics, movement sensors, remote diagnosis and treatment through virtual clinics, digital care planning, and Alexa-type virtual assistants. And we found places that were already ahead of the curve, such as Bourneville Garden, a retirement village with extra care apartments here in Birmingham. And each home combines traditional style with modern technology that supports independence, safety, and mobility. So finally, as we work together to build a digitally enabled future for housing and care and support, I challenge you to the following. Be ambitious. Start with people's needs in their homes and communities. Be strengths-based. Apply the 7 principles from the Sky Commission as a framework. Collaborate and co-produce. Join with local people, social care partners and housing, for example, planning, infrastructure and digital technology. Innovate. Test, innovate and scale innovation that supports people to live independent lives at home and in their communities. Be adaptable. Enable personalised and safe care, providing choices. Ensure equity. Make sure technology is accessible, affordable and simple. Thank you. Did you go that way or that way?
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine, and I think you'll agree with me that's quite a tour de force in terms of setting out a vision for housing and its interaction with tech. And I think if you wanted to have a look at the report, then it will be on the Sky website, so I recommend it. So we're now going to move on to hear about technology for an ageing population, panel for innovation, and lessons learnt and where next. So to tell us all about that is Professor Roy Sambach, visiting professor of the National Innovation Centre for Ageing at Newcastle University. Roy. Oh, as he's coming down the stairs, I wanted to say that you can still, although we're not having a question and answer session at the end, you can still use the app to ask questions, and so we'll do our best to answer them during the course of the session. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Right, good. Does this move? It does move. Right. I'm just going to check that these move on, okay? Yes, they do. Good. Right, good morning. Is anybody there? I mean, I won't go on to the next chart unless I hear somebody say good morning. In fact, why don't you just say good morning, Roy? Thanks. Okay, great. Good. So I'm Roy Sandbach, and honestly, when I was first asked to chair the TAPI inquiry, which is obviously technology for an ageing population, I thought it wouldn't take a great deal of effort. So thanks, guys. And I thank in particular, by the way, Jeremy Porteous from Housing Lynn and Sue Kay from Dunhill Medical Trust, who gave me the opportunity to do this. Because as someone who's inexpert in this area, and frankly, you guys are at the front end of this, I learned a great deal. And hopefully what I've tried to do is turn what was fantastic input from a panel and a set of experts into something that I'm going to enroll you all. You don't know this yet, by the way, so just remember at the end. I'm going to enroll you all in thinking about some principles for application of tech, and actually challenge you. It's easy for me to do that because I'm particularly independent. Right, so what was the TAPI inquiry? Well, differently to the Sky inquiry, this was focused on technology and its application. It was a set of panels. It was a panel of experts with a set of expert witnesses, which took place over the course of 2021 by Zoom. So people actually didn't realize I had legs. It was really weird. In fact, I walked past people who were on the panel during this conference and they didn't recognize me, which is strange. But nevertheless, what we needed to do, and the black is what the terms of reference were. The blue is what I think it was, okay? Innovation, in my mind, is matching what's needed with what's possible for economic value or for social good or for both. And I've lived with that definition for a long time. And so that's what I think we were doing. What did we do? Well, I'm going to direct you to the report itself because there's a lot of very rich learning in there, particularly a lot of case studies that hit the head and the heart, to be quite honest, from across the country, England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. Frankly, this is an area of activity which benefits from examination across the globe, never mind across the country. And I direct you to that as well. Best practice across the world is worth looking at in the context of tech and its applications. Just three things from me. I'm not going to, take too long. But the three things that hit me were the following: that people are at the heart of what we do here. And it's very difficult when you get to the kind of heterogeneous population that is older people to make things which apply to large groups. You almost inevitably have to start thinking about the individual much more. That's because we've all got very different life experiences when you get to my age. I'm over 65, but my mother's also over 65, and we have quite radically different needs from the point of view of tech and its application in our houses, and we do apply tech in our houses, but it's different, and it's for different reasons. In fact, I apply some tech in her house. She's 93, I need to be happy. I need to feel comfortable. So there is a lot of thinking that needs to be done with respect to the individual and the individual's needs for older people and frankly for vulnerable people as well. And that's something that doesn't come easy in policy, because policy speaks often to large groups of people with very large amounts of money, by the way, that are brought to us. But that's not the way it works. People are individuals, and we learned a lot about that in TAPI. And also, the other thing is, the implication of that is it's very local. It's very family, frankly. I mean, it's not just local, it's family. So everything that we do should be done with that lens on it. And I challenge you to get local. Even if you're working in a major organization, think local, think small, think individual. That's the people thing. By the way, let's be serious. And let's just think of this in housing terms. 80% of the houses that we will live in 2040 are already built. So we'd better get to grips with the housing that people have today and the application of tech in that housing. Let's understand that we can build new houses. Sure we can. And we can make them beneficial for those people that want them. But if we don't deal with tech and its application in existing housing, then frankly we'll get nowhere. So I just make that point about people as well. Processes. And actually Catherine said, and in fact David said, this area is complex. And it's actually, you look at it and you think, my goodness me, there are so many different organizations. It's very fragmented, many organizations are small, and we've got to recognize that's the case. And we've got to try to unpick that and allow people to work in communities of practice, and I don't think we do that. I'll come back to that in a minute. And then finally, what I'd like to just say is that, and we do talk a lot about white papers and stuff, right? Stuff. Well, right. I personally believe that if we're going to make tech work for people, it had better be worked bottom up as much as top down. I think we can all make a difference by applying some principles. And we can do that in our everyday work. We can ask ourselves questions every day about the application of tech in housing for older people. And this TAPI report, while it could have easily spoken to the sense of what is government policy, what is the national need, for example, for an independent living strategy, which is something that is a bit of a hobby horse for me. We don't have one, it's a gap. However, day to day, we can all make a difference. And in the TAPI report, you'll see 10 TAPI principles for application of tech. Now, here's my wish, right? That as a piece of paper, I'd like to see that on the desk and on the conference table as people are talking about application of technology in the housing of older people. Because if you ask yourselves the questions, is this choice-led? Is what we're doing choice-led? Are we matching what's needed with what's possible? Of course, is it co-produced? Are we asking them what they really want? Are we getting to the design? You know, people think that over 65 suddenly go from being design-driven to being a design-free zone. I mean, it's ridiculous. They want lovely stuff. I want lovely stuff. My mum wants lovely stuff. If that was on the table in everybody's office, in everybody's meeting room, across this whole sector, and was considered, we could change things from the bottom up, in my opinion. Now, beyond that, the principles. You've got to act. Innovation is about delivery. It's not just about ideas. And so there's a next step to TAPI, and Sue Kay from Dunhill Medical is going to talk to you about that soon. What we're going to do is we're going to test the principles in practice, and we're going to find out whether they work, and we're going to modify them, which is what anybody would do with my kind of background on. I'm a scientist by training and by career. So that's great news for me. We're going to test the TAPI principles in practice and create a framework. Just going to leave you with these words. These were words that people used when we were talking to them about about tech. And older people were saying, don't underestimate us. They were saying, please design things for us. Things we like, not things we just should use, not things that just appeal to the head, but also to the heart. I'm okay with technology, but it's not driving me, it's just enabling me to live my life. In fact, Clinton will talk about living life in a little while. And that's what all we want people to do, live happier, better lives. I mean, it shouldn't be rocket science. It's not rocket science. But these are the things that they told us. Right. Yeah, I'm always around. I'm like a bit of a bad penny, so I'm not around in various places. I'm easy to get in touch with. Come and talk to me. But just let's remember something. This is a Theodore Roosevelt's preceded, by the way. It's far better to dare mighty things and to have the occasional failure than to live in mediocrity. Now, I'm a Sunderland Football Club supporter, and I'm sick of mediocrity, okay? I just wished every now and again they'd win something. And I think in our sector, we don't want mediocrity because the sector is growing, it's exploding. We want to win big. And I think we can, and I think TAPI can help you to win big. So thanks for listening, and have a great morning. Thank you.
Wait, I've got a couple of questions for you. We've got a couple of questions, so I thought I'd take the opportunity, since Roy's here, to see if he's got a view about them. Lewis Sheldrake, are you here? Would you mind telling us your question?
Yeah, sure.
There's a microphone there.
There's one. Hi.
Hi there. So my question was...
It's not on. Absolutely.
It seems to be.
I can hear you anyway.
Yeah, okay. So just acknowledge that was a very useful and interesting presentation, so thank you for that. And acknowledging the point you made around the houses that we'll have in 2040, the vast majority of which have been built now.
Yes.
How do we, considering that technology and also the infrastructure that technology depends upon will evolve going forward, how do we ensure that we're not unwittingly building in obsolescence into housing and therefore inhibiting our ability to ensure that our population now and in the future aren't inhibited from having the most cutting-edge technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, it's a question that applies not just in this sector, but in fact, it's applied to much of what I've done in my life. And the answer to that question is, if you'd have asked Steve Jobs that question in his very earliest days, he'd have just said, let's get on with it and iterate. Okay? And people will continue to pay. And it's been amazing with Apple, by the way. I mean, let's be serious. We've got iPhone 13 now. It would have been easy to say, why don't we just wait? Okay? And Apple could easily have said, let's just wait to put the next bit of tech in there. No. What we need to do is we need to find out those things that are issues for people in their housing. And let me give you one example. Respiratory illnesses among older people. Damp. Right, what is the issue? The issue is we've got 17% non-decent homes in the UK. That's what the issue is. And surely we can use some tech to monitor damp in homes, and we can do something small to deal with that. And we can do it now. We don't need to wait until there's a sort of big deal. And now, is that from an economic, from a business point of view, a legitimate approach? It is actually, probably. I would say that you don't have to wait until the big next thing comes along. Are we making things? Are we making them obsolete? Well, maybe, but I think part of this has to be that we've got to put in stuff which is movable and manageable over time. Okay, we can talk about that a lot more, by the way.
Yeah.
Because there are some very important principles there. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. There's just one more anonymous one that I've got for you.
Yeah, okay. Hello, anonymous.
And so it says, we can't ignore the power that housing developers hold in this conversation. What is being done to ensure housing developers prioritise well-being? Physical space is so important, but so is ability to interact with and develop relationships with people in the community, with green space and local amenities.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that came up in your consideration of the principles.
Roy. Yeah. I mean, what can I say about housing developers? that will leave me without libel.
That says it all.
You're right, David. Housing developers are important. Indeed, Catherine showed a wonderful sense of a community built, which requires housing developers to be part of that. Now, my opinion is that we've got to do more from a policy and frankly, a regulation point of view and a planning point of view in order to ensure that people who work in those developers put purpose at the heart of their development and not profit. It's just Roy's view, by the way. No one but me would say that, but there we go. They should put purpose rather than profit. Now, the great thing is, there are wonderful housing best practices that could be applied, but I constantly drive past new housing developments where those housing developments from the start are not appropriate for older people or accessibility or other things. And that's just not good enough. So we all need to step up and say, that's not good enough, Mr. Housing Developer, whoever you might be, particularly the big ones. There we go.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roy. Thank you. Round of applause for Roy. And
thanks,
brilliant.
David.
Thank you very much. So, of course, all this has no meaning at all if we are not designing services, or indeed services aren't designed by the people who use them, have experience of them. And it's at the heart of the theme of this conference about the need for co-production at the level of the overall planning, but in terms of the individual's personalised care and support. So with that in mind, I'm absolutely delighted to invite Clinton Farquharson, MBE, Chair of the Board of Think Local Act Personal, TLAP, and Neil Crowther, co-convener of Social Care Futures, to come and talk to us about a place we call home. Clinton and Neil.
Hello, everyone.
Can't actually see any of you.
Yeah, no, can I? Well, thanks for having us here today. My name's Clinton Farquharson, and I'm the chair of Think Local Act Personal, which is a national partnership of organisations and people promoting personalisation. And Neil?
I'm Neil Crowther. I'm a co-convener of Social Care Future. We are a movement wanting systemic change, really to look beyond social care as we think about it now. We're doing that through trying to change the narrative, the story that we tell and hear about social care, but building the power, in particular people who themselves draw on support in their own lives and in politics and wider change, and through trying to catalyse and harness disruptive innovation. Clinton and I have known each other for years, but we just realised we've never actually done a double act like this together. And we nearly didn't, because I managed to get off at the wrong train station and was late here, but we're here now. But we talked the other day and realised actually what we were thinking of saying was so in alignment that it was probably better if we came together and shared this presentation. Clinton.
Okay. And while we're here to talk to you about housing and technology, we want to challenge you to think about something else first. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to think about something. I want you to either write it down or take a mental note of the things that immediately come to mind or the feeling that you have. Don't think too deeply about it. This should be from the top of your mind or heart response we are looking for. Is everyone ready? What comes to your mind or to your heart when you hear the word home? I'll just give you 30 seconds to think about it. What comes to your mind when you hear the word home? Now I want you to turn to the person or people next to you and share what came to your mind and note any similarities or differences or anything you note about what both are saying. You have 2 minutes for that. So talk to the person next to you. That would be quite novel. At least we got them talking. I've got to look at about for 2 minutes. I've got to.
It was about 16. Actually, probably 15. Sorry, can't read a clock. Bet you can make that go.
Oh, shit.
Mic slipped again. Your mic slipped.
Okay. Okay now. Okay, there's now rather a lot of you to ask you all, but would anyone care to share both what came to mind and what you noted from your discussions? Who would like to?
Someone up there.
Okay.
I
Just
think we've got
bring in the
mics
mic.
coming to you. Yeah.
Is it on? Yes, it is on. Okay, hi, I'm Rob, occupational therapist. Okay, number one, safe.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest one. Family, so big enough, so space for family. That's an interesting one when you consider small spaces being made available. Accessible, privacy, warm, and that's it.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks. Thank you.
And the one down there.
Yeah. Hi there. Can you see me?
Yeah.
How
Hello.
you doing? Quite simply, we just said that it's wherever the people we care about are, and there's a distinction between a house and a home.
Yeah.
So you could sort of relocate your loved ones anywhere, and that would become your home. And it's got to be a place where you feel comfortable, and it works for everybody in that space.
Brilliant. Thank you.
One more. Just one more.
Yeah, there's somebody up there.
Hi, Suzanne from Wolverhampton. The first thing that came to mind was my bed. But actually, it was very similar in that both of my colleagues talked about comfort, and it's what makes home. And then secondly, it was kind of the garden and being able to access the garden and kind of do things with the flowers. But definitely comfort.
Brilliant. Okay, that's a good point to the slides, please.
Okay. For me, Home is where my loved ones are. It's where I make and made memories, happy and sorrows. It's where I garden in the summer and where I celebrate holidays with friends and family. I can invite people around, go in and out as I please, and just generally be myself. Unfortunately, for a great number of individuals that's currently out of reach, there's a vast amount of care and support needs that begin at home.
Yeah, I just want to, thank God that exercise worked and you kind of gave us the answers that we anticipated. And I mean, the basic point is a house is not a home. A home is something different. And there's a really good report about to come out from an academic some of you may have heard of called Lucy Series about this, where she explores the centrality of home to our identity and our personhood. And this is all about moving beyond institutional care, but thinking about home as a way to think beyond that, because we know from people like Alex Fox and his book, people may not all live in what we traditionally called institutions, but it doesn't mean people actually enjoy what we would all typically think of as home. And in there, Lucy talks about home as territory. So home is a space that we control. We control who comes over the threshold into our homes. So somebody mentioned privacy, I think. Privacy is really important, the control we have over that space that is ours. Home is a haven. Somebody talked about safety. So the idea it's somewhere we retreat to, and we are safe and we feel safe. We feel kind of cut off from the world around us deliberately, and we feel safe together. Home is love and belonging. The point that was made about home is where our loved ones are. Home is generally the space we share with our families and the people we care about. So where we form our identities and where our identities are reaffirmed by family and friends and the people around us. And finally, crucially, home is identity. We tend to arrange our homes and design our homes and organise our homes in a way that reflects deeply who we are, and we have control over that, and that's really, really crucial too. So home is absolutely central to our well-being. It's a fundamental point, and a house is not a home. A home is something else. A home is the thing in which all of these things are happening at the same time. And we just wanted to introduce that now, because as we think about technology and housing, we'd like to think about technology and home in all these different dimensions. And it's no coincidence that home is central to the social care future vision for the future. And this was a vision that was co-created by members of our network. And in fact, the exercise we did on the day we all sat down to begin writing it was exactly the one we've just done here. What does home mean to you? And then we moved on to think, well, what would we want social care to mean if it was working in the way we imagined it to work? So our vision is that we all want to live in the place we call home with the people and things that we love, in communities where we look out for one another, doing what matters to us. And you'll note that despite our little hashtag at the bottom, that vision doesn't mention social care. It doesn't talk about vulnerable people or older and disabled people. It's a vision addressed to all of us, because these are the things that we all cherish. And for us, the function of social care is to support us all to enjoy the things that everyone has reason to value. You'll also note that it's not rooted in the sort of paternalistic values we tend to hear around social care. It's rooted in self-direction, being in control of our lives. It's rooted in community, the idea that people have gifts and talents to share with their communities, as well as drawing on the support of their communities. And it's rooted in security and belonging, the issues of safety and rootedness that we all need to sort of feel our well-being is intact. But our sense really is that the social care business as usual is struggling to deliver this, and that's why we have a vision that we want to see move far beyond that. And the slides have stopped moving along at this point. Am I doing something wrong? Oh, there we go. Sorry. So our vision continues. And I think this is a really important point for this conference. I think a number of the other speakers, Catherine and others, have touched on this. But in our vision, social care isn't a single service that's delivered to people. That's not how we think about social care. In our vision, it's about, when it's organised well, it's about stitching together different things, different formal and informal relationships and support, and that includes technology. So when organised well, social care helps nurture an ecosystem of relationships and support in our communities that we can draw on to live our lives in the way that we want to, whatever our age or stage in life. And we want technology to play as full a role as it possibly can in delivering that vision. And I think that also requires a bit of a mind shift, because I think there's lots of great innovations around technology, lots of potential, and we'll talk about a few of them in a moment. But it still feels as though when we're talking about technology, we're imagining how technology will come to the aid of social care rather than to the aid of people who have cause to draw on social care. We're talking a lot about digital care records and acoustic monitoring and how that will kind of help care providers. We want to think beyond that and see technology as part of this ecosystem that people themselves can draw on in their own lives. And it's just a slightly different way of thinking about it. And when we do, I think we can see a lot more potential and options. But I'm just going to hand back to Clinton for a second.
Thank you. At Think Local, Act Personal, we created a roadmap, and that roadmap we call Making It Real. And we co-produced I statements to explain what good looks like from the person's perspective. And an I statement was, I have a place I can call home, not just a bed or somewhere that provides me with care. I live in a home which is accessible and designed so I can be as independent as possible. And we created as well we statements to show providers, commissioners, health and social care staff what good would look like. And the we statements were framed around, we have conversations with people to discover what they want from life and the care and support and housing that enables this without restricting solutions to formal services and convenient treatments. We make sure people feel safe, comfortable in their own homes, which is accessible and appropriate aids and adaptations, technology and medical equipment. We know that places where people live and the people they live with and the support they get are important to their well-being and is often interlinked. We have conversations with people to make sure we get all aspects right for them as individuals. And using Making It Real as our guide is just one way to ensure that we are designing housing that meet people's needs and aspirations. At the end of the day, what makes our home a home is not just bricks and mortar. It's the individual in each of us, and it's our DNA. So for housing support and good, meaningful life, we need to work together with individuals to provide personalised, co-produced options which help and maintain our humanity and sense of community. If we could go on to the next. Thank you. In this slide, at TLAC, we call this the rainbow. And the rainbow is innovation of showcasing innovative models of care and support. And we see a need for commissioning to shift from the traditional models to a more innovative model of housing. People's life experiences don't neatly fit in social care or health or housing. What needs is a cross-sector collaboration across all of these areas with people at the centre.
Yeah. Thanks, Clinton. And so we really believe that, in a way, the potential of technology in the field of social care is unrealised because social care itself is unimagined, and it's constrained by low expectations of what it can be. It's constrained by ageism. It's constrained by attitudes to disabled people and a perception that disabled people can't necessarily be in control of their own lives. And we want to challenge all of that. We want technology to come to the aid of that too. I'm going to mention in a moment some research I've been involved with the University of Essex Human Rights Centre, looking at the implications, human rights implications of new and emerging technologies moving into the field of care and support. But one thing stuck out for me when I was doing that work, an interview I did with somebody, and this was against the backdrop, and often a perception that actually, well, technology and older people don't use the internet, older people don't use tech and things like that. But one woman I spoke to was in her 70s who wasn't yet using care, but she said, when I need care, I want a smart home, a care robot, and a self-driving car to see my friends. And that aspiration, that desire for control and the potential of technology to actually help deliver that, I think is something we've yet to fully kind of realise and fully exploit. So in addition to many of the things you've heard earlier, which I think we need to expand about, the opportunities provided by the Internet of Things, by smart home technologies, some of which are designed for care, some of which are readily available. I don't know if anyone listened to Wendy Mitchell's recent interviews at the launch of her book, talking about how she'd not really used technology before she had dementia, and now the Amazon Alexa is something that she uses a great deal. She uses an iPad, all sorts of technology to organise her life and be able to live independently in the community in which she lives. More sophisticated things about brain-computer interfaces that are helping people with spinal cord injury to exercise control over their home environment, and other things you've heard about today around monitoring, acoustic listening, other sensors linked to the internet, to artificial intelligence, and so on. I think one of the areas that we've yet to explore is the potential of digital technology in coming to the aid of personalisation. You know, our digital footprint as a tool for asserting our identity, will and preferences, as a tool for supported decision-making. The way personalising algorithms help us to think about the lives that we want to lead. You know, they help us to buy things, they help us to think through issues. We're constantly kind of faced with these algorithms, but we're not harnessing them to help people think about the lives they could potentially lead and the sort of supports that might help them to do so, and pointing people towards those supports. We don't have a kind of Pinterest for independent living, showing us life hacks and things like that that we could draw on. We don't have a Mumsnet for social care, where we could go and find ideas and draw down on them. We don't have yet technology that's helping us people manage direct payments, or actually offering an alternative to direct payments that allows people to exercise choice and control, find and buy and purchase services and support. And we're not fully using data analysis and prediction. Well, we're not using it very well at all within social care, but we're not using it beyond that to help shape commissioning, genuinely informed by the will and preferences and aspirations of people to live their own lives. So those are the things we really want to see. We think technology could play an enormous role in delivering our vision, but we need to think rather differently about it than we have been doing in line with our vision. But I'm just going to finish on a few points that come from the research that I mentioned, because I think there's potentially two futures in front of us where technology is concerned in this context, and they probably will happen concurrently, but we need to be kind of aware of these tensions. And this comes from a human rights analysis, a human rights point of view. Tech for good is really about our rights, our choices, our decision to draw on technology in our own lives, to improve our own lives. It reaffirms our personhood and identity. Come back to the points I made about home before. It respects our home and our relationships. It helps us to be more connected to and included in our community. It empowers us to exercise control over our lives. And crucially, it offers us more convenience. But tech for bad is something where it's done to us. This might just be automation. We don't have any control over it. It undermines our personhood and identity. It's not respecting our home and all the things that you outlined as important. It does not respect our home and our relationships. It could leave us more isolated and segregated, take away control from us, and be hugely inconvenient. So I think we need to bear these things in mind as a kind of guide, and it's the first step that will take us towards Social Care Futures vision. I'll just hand back to Clinton to finish.
And for me, I would just like to leave you with, technology should be of good design to avoid people's, to enable people to live in their home, but making sure that technology doesn't take on the appearance of a hospital ward. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. That was absolutely brilliant, and I think what you did, you took us from the immensely personal about what we all value about our home through to the principles around what social care could be about, that Social Care Futures vision, to the practical reality of how to make it work for the person and everybody. So that was tremendous, and I wanted to thank you for that, but also, as we've come to the end of this session, to thank all of our speakers so to thank Catherine for showing us the piece of work from the funded by the Dunhill Trust on the roadmap for the future, which I think gives us a vision and some substance about how we might get there. We've had Roy's tour de force around the TAPI principles and how that plays into this. And we've got the Susan's next phase, which is incredibly exciting, about how that might be taken forward in the pilot areas. And of course, again, Clinton and Neil on how we can really make this person-centred and important for all of us. So thank you very much indeed, and I'd ask you to give another round of applause to all our speakers and contributors, and thank you.
Cheers.